Welcome to Sisflix, the podcast where we won't judge you for talking through the movie. Sisflix are the movies you laugh at, yearn for, and overanalyze with your girls, significant others, and now us.
We are your hosts,
Paola
and Nadhya, two sisters and designers who discuss chick flicks we hate to love,
tropes we love to hate,
and all of the aesthetic choices in between. Join us as we break down our favorite movies together.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Can you believe we're at the halfway mark of My Lady Jane?
No, dude. Can't believe it. It's been a long time coming.
How many times would you say at this point have you rewatched My Lady Jane?
I've probably rewatched it 3 or 4 times.
Ooh. Now, okay, when you rewatch, who are you rewatching for? Because I'm rewatching for Jane and Guilford every time.
Yes, of course. Obviously, Jane and Guilford, they never have enough time together. As if I keep watching, they'll have more time together magically. Yeah.
You get to experience it all over again.
Yeah. The same frustration.
As we've been covering this show, many of our sisters of the pod have reached out to share their love and enthusiasm for this show. We just wanted to share just a few recent comments from our sisters of the pod talking about My Lady Jane. One message says, My Lady Jane is a gem of a show. The main couple has a mind-blowing chemistry. It deserves a season 2. Yes, yes, and yes.
Agree.
The show is truly one of a kind, a breath of fresh air, and I need more. That's why we're watching it, baby.
Mm-hmm.
It was so unique and a bit of a romp. I love a romp. Such a creative way to tell the story, and I love the narration style. Absolutely. I think the narration is a hoot.
I go back and forth on it. I know. I've talked to some of our sisters of the pod in the comments, or not in the comments, in the DMs about that. There are moments where I'm like, hell yeah. And then there are moments where I'm like,
and we go back and forth here about like sometimes wishing that it was a female narrator.
Yeah, for sure.
To give us a bit, just that bit more sass. But yes, he's a hoot. He's a hoot. Another message. So many cool influences in it. Princess Bride, Knight's Tale, so many to name. And the soundtrack, holy shit. Female covers of classic rock and new artists. Amazing. Yes, those are our favorite parts. Let's see. Best show I've ever seen. It's so witty and the chemistry between the leads is insane.
It really is like next level. And I'm positive, especially because there are so many women behind this production, this seems like the kind of show that would really prioritize an intimacy coordinator. I'm like, holy fuck, I really hope they were friends. I'm biased. I love when people are friends. Like in general,
love when people are friends here at Sisflix Pod.
We love when people are friends, but I really hope they were friends.
They had to discuss the tongue. I'm sure, of course. They had to talk about it.
Much.
They needed to be
liberal
in
use
line.
Of tongue. And I'm like, you had to have talked about this.
I am very grateful for their service. I think
we're open mouth kissing
done.
tongue first. Okay. What's her middle name? What's her middle name? Where'd she go to school?
He doesn't need to know.
What's her mom's name? That's so much.
Hello, Lady Francis. She set them up.
Ridiculous. Continue.
Oh my God. Last one, I'll say. Loved every minute. Female gaze at its best. Prime must renew it. Let's go.
Let's go.
And if it's not Prime, somebody else.
Somebody else, dude.
I think what we're all understanding is that we need more Jane and Guilford here in 2025. We got to deal with the next couple of years. We need something.
That is only a small sampling of the comments that you guys sent us about My Lady Jane, of the people that responded to our stories, of people that have sent us DMs about how they feel about this show. This show has such a devoted following. I almost feel like it getting canceled made people ride harder for it. So we love to see that. We love all of the commitment, the fervent supporters of My Lady Jane, and, you know, just the entirety of the story. I mean, again, as we've mentioned in our previous episodes, this rollicking story, My Lady Jane, adapted for television, written by Gemma Burgess and Meredith Glynn, starring Emily Bader as Lady Jane Grey, and Edward Blumell as Lord Guildford Dudley. So you guys already know that info. We've discussed it. It's been in the previous episodes. Just a little refresh. Today, we are discussing episodes 5 and 6. Where did we leave off? I'll tell you. King Edward was pronounced dead. Jane was pronounced queen, and she went on a mission to find out how Edward actually died. She found out that Mary and Seymour conspired to kill him so Mary could take the throne. And Jane and Guilford, parallel to all of this, have the raging horn for each other. But they will not fall into temptation because they don't want to be together, ? Jane doesn't want to, ? So we're all incredibly frustrated by now, confused, sad, what's happening? By the time episode 4 ends with Jane confronting Mary strangling the shit out of Jane in the middle of the garden and leaving her passed out, we believe that Edward is dead. However, the closing shot of episode 4 is King Edward waking up from some type of fucking coma in a weird place surrounded by nuns. Let's fucking go. All right, sister, so can you hit me with the start of episode 5?
Absolutely. So let's get into episode 5, titled, I'm Gonna Change the World. And the description for this episode is, Mary is coming for Jane's crown. Francis is coming for Guilford. And the nobility is coming to get hammered at Jane's coronation banquet.
Let's go.
The narrator opens this episode with the line, once upon a time, there was a young king who was poisoned, assumed dead, but was in fact not.
Once upon a time.
And we get Edward, who wakes up in a bed surrounded by a group of nuns in all white. And one nun being his grandmother, played by Barbara Martin, who he calls Granny. Through some verbal exposition, she lets us know exactly how he escaped from the turret. We learn that he was actually rescued by one of the nuns who climbed up the turret, knocked him upside the head, and then carried him on her back to the convent, and there administered the antidote to the Tofana that Mary had been using to poison him with. Okay. So I'm going to do this again. We're going to keep doing this because that's why we're here.
That's what we do.
In the book, and this is not a spoiler because it literally doesn't happen in the series unless they had planned to do it in the second season. Now, in the event of a second season, and if you don't want a spoiler, just skip ahead 30 seconds. Okay? Because we're operating on wishful thinking here. There is still a possibility that My Lady Jane will come back.
Mm-hmm. And this is a major book spoiler.
Is it? Oh, I guess
Yeah.
it can also be a book spoiler.
Yeah.
You're right. In the book, when escaping the turret, he jumps out as his only form of escape, and the jump triggers his first Ethian transformation into a bird. That's how King Edward escapes in the book. They don't do that here in the series. So far,
Edward is just the Verity.
after he turns into a bird, he then goes on a quest to find his grandmother's home that Petunia had told him about. Here, obviously, that doesn't happen. Here, he's rescued by the nuns, and he sees his grandmother and is like, oh, Granny, okay, you're here, you're alive. And then it's pretty much like, nice to see you. I'm out. I need to go back to the palace. And she's like, nope. You need to rest. Everything at the palace is fine. And if we remember, everything at the palace is indeed not fine. Over at the palace, we see Jane wake up the following morning in the middle of the garden after being strangled by Mary.
That's crazy. And that nobody has seen her is crazy.
Nobody has seen her. There's no
Anthony
servants.
and Kate can't have a second where they
What?
kiss in the gardens. But Jane got strangled and is laying on the ground and nobody's found her. Okay.
And they're at the palace.
It's wild.
So she wakes up in the middle of the garden from being passed out all night, wakes up after this attack, bruised neck and all. And what's her first thought when she wakes up?
Guilford.
Guilford. So she hauls ass to the stables to try to check on him. Thankfully, she finds out he's safe, right? She is reassured by Rupert. But then she learns that the letters they had discovered have been taken by Mary. Fuck.
And one of the things that like pissed me off in episode 4, like Jane really just ran up. Mary ran up on Jane, but Jane ran up on her with like, I have proof that you did this. No backup, no one with her, no servant, no witnesses. Girl, you are too fucking smart to have done something this dumb. Like the letters, I have the letters. Look, they're in my hand. Bitch, you ain't got no fucking letters. Put them in your pocket. Like tuck them in your bust. Like, I'm sorry. It made me so mad. I was like, you are showing all of your fucking cards at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I think, well, it shows us a couple of things. Is one of them is a bit of naivety when she thinks that people are playing the same game as her. They're not. She's brand new to this, and this is one of those problems, I think maybe one of the first problems that she's facing, where it's not going to just be solved because she's smart.
Right.
It's not going to just be solved because she figured something out. There's a lot more calculating required. She's dealing with conniving people, and I don't know that she's ever had to I mean, she's dealt with her mother.
That's true. But her mother is conniving in a totally different way.
Right. Her mother's conniving in a way that's like, here, I'm doing this because...
for me. We're securing this for me. We're securing money for me. I think the whole of the monarchy, that's what feels beyond anything that Lady Francis has orchestrated.
Yes, absolutely. So this just goes to show Jane has a lot to learn in how to maneuver in these spaces. This is definitely a different playing field. Something we recognize in Jane is that she's very eager. She's very eager to learn. She's very eager in making a change, and might not take enough time to really look at the chess pieces. So from there, we cut to the Ethian camp where Susanna and Archer are considering an offer from another Mary. And that is Mary, Queen of Scots, who has offered to fight alongside the Ethians if they help her take over the English throne. In the book, if you want to fast forward 15 seconds, Mary, Queen of Scots is actually Ethian as well, and is supportive of the Ethian cause.
Yeah.
As Archer and Susanna are mulling this over, a troop of Kingsland guards rides into their encampment and starts fighting and slaughtering Ethians.
Wait.
Completely unprovoked.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Go on.
This group of people who have been shunned by the ruling class and made to live in the fringes of this society are then also persecuted and attacked within their own spaces in the name of order and safety, quote unquote, for the people. But they were just hanging out. Completely unprovoked attack. So something I would like to point out is, if you notice throughout the show, when they talk about the Ethian spaces, they call them encampments. A place that's not permanent because they're constantly on the move because of the danger of being persecuted, because they're constantly being pushed out and they are not allowed to settle. When they refer to the Verities spaces, they always say Verity settlements, right? Whenever they're talking about the Ethians coming into the space, oh, they're coming into the Verity settlement. This implies to me they are not of this land. They have settled there. Just the use of this language within this fantasy landscape presents, like we've mentioned before, an allegory to our modern understanding of racism, segregation, colonialism, and apartheid under white supremacy as experienced by oppressed populations. So the experience of the Ethians and the Verities parallels so many things that we see happening politically in countries around the world who are oppressed by colonialist powers. I just want to bring attention to that comparison here because I think it's very important. In the show specifically, the parallel that's being drawn between the experiences of the Ethians and the Verities is the religious conflict between Protestant England and the waning Catholicism under Mary I.
It's told in this raunchy kind of fantasy story way, with humor, with something fantastical. But in that way, because it is not directly addressing race and because it does not directly address white supremacist colonialism, This is one of the only digestible formats, I think, for a lot of white people to viscerally understand the impacts of racism and oppression. And I'm not saying that I'm not one of these people. I'm saying this as general for people on Earth. We have the tendency to center ourselves and our beliefs and our perspective in everything that we consume, books, movies, TV. Something that happens when you're trying to consume a piece of media that rubs up against a perception you hold of yourself is that you want to shun it. You want to push it away. You find it offensive. People start to say, like, it's about me. You're coming for me. You calling out white supremacy and I'm a white person. You're telling me that I'm a racist.
Right. And that's not right.
And that's not what anybody's saying. We're saying that systems of oppression exist. They're reinforced by ignoring history. They're reinforced by reaffirming white supremacist colonial power. And when you are consuming a fantasy story, then My Lady Jane's not the only one, baby. What's a big favorite for you motherfuckers? Star Wars. Who's the Empire and who are the rebels? I'll tell you, the Empire's the United States and the rebels fucking Vietnam. People are so much more open to consuming these narratives and like giving value to the perspective of the quote unquote rebels or of the underdogs when it is presented to them in a format isolated from race, isolated from class, because there's this sense of like distance and this sense of being a third party viewing it rather than a complicit party experiencing it. And so here we're watching this from a perspective of sympathizing with Ethians because we care about Jane. She's our main character. We find out that her husband, who she's beginning to care about, is an Ethian, a person she wants to protect and take care of. We're learning that Ethians are not these inherently evil, savage beings or whatever, but that Verities want them pushed out of society, want them to be eliminated. Anyone who's like listening to this and watching this show, listening to us, I want you to close your eyes, take a few blades of grass between your fingers, and I want you to think about the various empires in our real three-dimensional non-fictional world that want to push out, squash, eliminate populations of people and want you to be on their side while they do it.
Yep, exactly. And sell it to you as safety and
protection.
Security. Yeah.
Think about that. Watch your fun romantic show. Watch them tongue kiss all day because good pieces of media make you think about things like this.
Absolutely. This narrative is so important within this landscape. And even though, like you said before, this was brought into the story to kind of fictionalize the actual conflict between Catholics and Protestants, these same conflicts that you read about today in history and you're like, oh, it feels so outdated. It feels like, oh, wow, religious persecution. Where, bitch, It's happening today. It's happening in our modern time where people are being persecuted because they have different religious beliefs. And it's important to be able to recognize and critique it just as we do history.
I think another thing in this same vein that My Lady Jane does well, My Lady Jane does well following in the footsteps of many other movies, TV shows, pieces of media that have done this well, is that you get this view of the monarchy being, if not complicit, Edward is complicit because he doesn't take action.
He's a centrist. We mentioned it in our first
He's the white moderate.
We mentioned him as, yes.
Edward is the white moderate. I want them to be fine, far away from me. You get that, and then you get Mary, who's bloodthirsty and fucking crazy. So you get this system of power that is either neutral to the suffering of an entire population of people or actively encouraging the suffering of an entire population of people. Mm-hmm. Neither wing is trying to make their lives better. You're seeing that, and because of the way the humor in the story is structured, because of the way these characters are represented, you're already like, these people are kind of like idiots. And then you see the Ethian characters, and you're like, oh, they're just regular people who want
with
to
like
live and be
with
alive.
A little extra, yeah, who want to just be alive and be able to just have their powers that they have.
And if you're me, you're watching the TV show and you're going, why the fuck aren't the Ethians the one in charge? Why aren't the Ethians with bonus powers, a bonus serving of cool shit at the top of this hierarchy? It's because they threaten the established system of power.
It's crazy when you think about it because they have the power. When you think about their power and how they're able to infiltrate into the Verities settlements, they would be able to take over if they're able to organize. However, they're not able to organize because they're constantly being oppressed. They're constantly having to fight for their lives. They can't settle. They don't have the time or resources to be able to organize the way that they need to. But they have the power because they inherently are stronger than the Verity population. I would argue that the Verities know that, which is why they have to oppress them and keep them where they are so that they're not ever able to be equal. They're not ever able to come up and live in their society because they know that they're better than them because they have these supernatural powers that the Verities can never have.
I think there's this latent fear that isn't examined so much in this season, but I think if the show were to go on, it would be, which is, what if Ethians did gain power? What would they do to us? Because of what we've done to them.
Because of what we've done to them. Girl. And all they want is to live their life.
And you know what? Maybe there would be a Verity that would say, hey, what about a 2-state solution?
Oh.
And then all of us could scream and yell and fight.
Ooh.
I had to say that. Yeah, I had to say that.
No, and just blip.
Obviously, this is a British show about English history, English monarchs, but I'm thinking about this in the context of like the 19th and 20th century in the United States. What happened in 1921, the Black Wall Street, Tulsa massacre in Oklahoma, right? When you are actively removing prosperity, growth, progress from entire populations, when you are intentionally setting them decades behind you and then telling them that, as Paola was saying, like, you should be the ones to organize and fight if you want rights. How? With what? All the stuff you took away? It reminds me of when the George Floyd protests were happening in the summer of 2020. There was this viral video of this woman who was very, very upset, very angry, getting interviewed about one of the protests that she had attended. An African-American woman. One of the things that she said has stuck with me for 5 years. They should be glad that we want justice and not revenge.
Yeah.
And the belief, I guess, on the Verity side is that if you keep subjugating Ethians, you'll break them down so much that they'll stop seeking revenge. They'll stop even seeking justice. They'll just try to live under the radar, if they live at all, if you haven't captured them all. They'll be too scared to fight you.
If you haven't obliterated their population by then.
Mm-hmm.
And so this conversation that Archer and Susanna are having, Archer is pretty much saying, listen, marry Queen of Scots. If we help her take over England, she's going to let us have rights. They've gotten to a point that they have to outsource help. Mm-hmm. They're considering to take over this monarchy so that they can have rights, just equality, be able to build homes, be able to raise their kids, be able to send their kids to school. That's all they want. And they're willing to align themselves to an outside power to be able to do that, because that's the only way they see out. And Susanna is looking at Archer and it's like, what's the difference with aligning ourselves to one Verity than aligning ourselves to another Verity for just promises that she can break later in the future?
Mm-hmm.
What's one Mary versus the other Mary? Okay, it's just words.
Sounds like Susanna is familiar with the American government in 2025.
It's familiar with the two-party system. So they both have very valid points. At the end of the day, what the story is trying to tell us and show us is, here are the Ethians who are being persecuted in their own encampment, quote unquote. All they want is to be able to live their life. When the Kingsland Guards come upon them and they start slaughtering Ethians left and right, they say that they're there in the name of the crown, in the name of Queen Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Susanna hears this and says, what?
Queen Jane?
So from there, we cut to Jane. And what's Jane doing? She is trying to convince Lord Dudley of everything that Mary and Seymour have done and what Mary tried to do to her. Mm-hmm. And Lord Dudley is pretty much like, I don't think we can do anything. Mm-hmm. He warns her that she cannot confront Mary, something I wish she knew the night before.
Dog.
And what Dudley suggests is that her safest bet is to crown Guildford as king by her side.
All right, Lord Dudley, it's getting transparent.
Okay.
God.
All right. And he says this, citing that men ultimately make people feel safer.
You gotta love that joke coming from the show. You gotta love it.
Wow.
That's how you know this shit was written by women, because that is some sharp satire.
Do they really?
Sharp satire right there.
You know who feels safer around men?
Men. And not even then, actually.
So Lord Dudley has obviously never been a woman. Plus, he tells her, she was only chosen for the crown because she could birth a male heir. with her union to Guilford Dudley.
Great.
That's, in his opinion, the only thing that she has above Mary and Elizabeth. And so he also presents this as, everyone loves a twofer. We'll crown you, we'll crown him.
God.
You get a little BOGO. Everybody loves a buy one, get one.
Oh, my God.
Ultimately, he says their goal is to appease the nobility. That's the only way to try to win this game. And he insists that she needs the nobility on her side if she wants to beat Mary. And I cannot disagree with him there.
Yeah.
The shit is, though, that he already has the paperwork drawn up for her to sign to make Guilford king. And my guy, now we're going to ask you, Mr. Dudley, Lord, Sir, man, you must appease the queen. How about that? How about that? Appease her first and then talk to her about fucking her queendom. Anyway. So as he's trying to convince her, no, stick to the status quo. Charles knocks on the door to inform Queen Jane that there's an Irish girl that has come looking for her and sent her a feather. So now we know that's Susanna. But first, we cut to Mary. Mary is pissed about her weak thumbs. And the narrator chimes in and says, that Castilian inbreeding for you.
God damn. Yikes.
Oh my God. Okay. So Mary cannot believe that she could not strangle Jane to death. God damn it. These weak thumbs. And Seymour, honestly, really truly, in the sweetest way, as if she simply just left some cookies in the oven too long, goes, "You tried your best, my love." It's okay.
Supportive king. Just kidding.
You
no,
tried.
Not Seymour. But we do love support.
We love the support. You know what? I can appreciate that from Seymour. He is supporting his queen. And you know what he does? Again, and I continue to support this. He then offers her a foot rub. You had a long day. The things you wanted didn't work out. Let me give you a foot massage.
You know how much money and influence you have for y'all to be so mad about being king and queen when you could just hide away and do kinky shit in a random palace forever for the rest of your lives? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but we know that's not what drives Mary. She needs power. So with this scene, for as much as we dislike Mary, right? I honestly cannot hate Seymour. I can't hate him. The way they have written his character, you end up liking Seymour, even though he's incredibly fucked up and he supports Mary.
Yeah.
Despite being offered a foot massage, Mary, she can't. She's freaking out. She's worried that people are going to find out. She's worried about Bess. She's worried Bess is up to something. Ultimately, she resolves herself to find an ally and raise an army. That's it. So while she tasks Seymour to go check on Bess, she goes off and finds a Lord Norfolk in the Rose Garden. She asks this Norfolk, who's apparently been connected to their family for quite some time. She asks him for his army to defend the Verity way of life. But he tells her, if you want an army, you have to promise that you're going to make me your Lord Chancellor when you become queen. That would mean she has to fire Seymour. If she plays Seymour, he promises her 5,000 men to fight for her. During this whole conversation, she's been violently chopping up white flowers, right? And allow me to point out some symbolism here. Okay. The obvious symbolism of the white rose is its representation of innocence and purity. I think about that visual in Jane the Virgin. It's so funny that her name is also Jane.
Yeah.
Where the grandmother makes her crumple up the white rose as a sign of her virginity.
My God.
As a sign of her purity. And then it's see, you see how you crumpled it up? You see how fucked up it looks now? Yeah, well, you can never get it back. That's your virginity. Yikes. Okay.
And I think part of it could also be a reference to the English War of the Roses, which was a century prior, right, to the events of My Lady Jane, but was basically a super long, drawn-out power struggle between two opposing houses that wanted to take the English monarchy. One would win and then would get taken over, and then the other would win and then they get taken over. And the two sides, one was a white rose, the other represented by red roses.
Yes, and actually, so then Henry VII came along and married Elizabeth of York. And so this unified England, right? Then this created the House of Tudor. Their symbol was merging these two flowers to create the Tudor rose, which is the red rose with the white rose in the middle. So Mary and Jane now kind of represent these two different sides of the Tudor rose. And Mary violently tearing up these white roses points at her willingness not only to kill Jane, but to kill Jane and divide England to ascend the throne. And in a very telling follow-up, Lord Norfolk offers her one of those white roses, and quite literally, she eats it up while staring into this man's eyes. Goodness gracious. It's so creepy.
That is such a fucking choice. That is such a choice.
But it also represents visually that Lord Norfolk does end up feeding Jane right to her.
And just as Mary licked the ring given to Lord Seymour by Henry Tudor, by her father, it's this theme of consumption. Is her wanting to like consume the monarchy, consume the power to take over the country and reshape it in her image.
Oh my God. It's giving you a little salt burn.
I was literally about to say that. Oh my God. Where's the bathwater?
Oh no. Yo. Listen, I could absolutely see Mary drinking Seymour's bathwater. I 100%. She
I
is
hate
that
bathing.
unhinged.
I don't know how many times I have to tell you that. Girl.
Oh.
What is
okay,
scurrying
Mary.
around
Listen,
down there?
if anything, Mary's a little spicy. If anything. So yes, that symbolism there. Also the symbolism of, like we were saying, the purity of a white rose, right? A trait that we at this point can attribute to Jane, her rival. Her hacking up these roses is her quite literally taking her aggression she has towards Jane and taking it out on this rose bush. There's key moments where we even see Jane dressed in all white, while Mary we almost exclusively see in red.
And let's not forget, later on in history, the real Princess Mary would come to be known as Bloody Mary due to her persecution of Protestants.
Yep. I love how all of those themes come together in the symbolism of the colors they wear and even in this reference to the roses. So, you know what? The writers did something.
They be writing.
These writers be writing. I love it. After this, we go back to Jane. After Mary has consumed the white rose, we meet back up with our white rose, Jane, who is now meeting with Susanna, demanding to know if she's really the one that ordered the Kingsland Guard to attack their encampment. And shocked by her words, Jane didn't even really know that this was going on. Susanna describes how terrible things have been and how they just keep getting worse. It seems that Jane was completely unaware about how Ethians actually lived. And this makes something click for Jane. Up until this point, after she was crowned queen, she's been so distracted by finding the cause of Edward's death, naturally. But it has taken her until now to realize she's in charge now. And she's in charge of making change now. After promising Susanna that these attacks won't ever happen again, she leaves the room, determined to, quote unquote, do her fucking job.
Let's go.
And we see her leave the room and storm into the council chambers and announce that the Kingsland Guard are now disbanded immediately, and promises that anyone flouting her orders will be hanged. Like, shit, okay, girl. So she really said defund the police now, today.
Oh my God.
Defund them.
She really said ACAB.
Dudley and Seymour are like, oh shit. And they rush to her to try to advise her that order felt a bit rash. As they're chasing her down the hall, Mary turns up at the opposite end of the hall. So this is Jane and Mary's first encounter since Mary's attack. And Jane, quite bravely, honestly, she really does face her head on directly as she approaches. And I love how they position this interaction. They position this interaction as a direct contrast and comparison, almost like a good versus evil, if you will, because the way they set up Mary in her dark red and gold dress, she stands against this dark background as the light draws like dark shadows on her face. while Jane is positioned with a much lighter background behind her, allowing for the light to bounce off more, giving her softer shadows in comparison. Then we have her blue and green dress directly complementing Mary's dark red, right? They're opposing colors on the color wheel. It's almost like they're showing opposite sides of the same coin. Here we have two women pitted against each other, both very passionate in their beliefs, making rash decisions to uphold their individual causes. But one's ideals includes hurting people, while the other is simply hoping to help people. That's the vast difference that we see within Mary and Jane. When Jane tells Mary about her order to disband the Kingsland Guard, Mary quite literally loses her shit and almost attacks Jane again right there in front of Seymour and Lord Dudley. Seymour intervenes and leads Mary away. As he's leading Mary away, he says, "Oh, Jane, your tender heart and progressive mind, what will your generation do next?"
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
So now left alone with Dudley, Jane realizes something. She realizes just how deep Mary's hate for the Ethians runs. Lord Dudley reminds us that Mary's mother, and by extension, Mary herself, were set aside and disowned for her father to pursue Anne Boleyn, Bess's mom. Anne Boleyn, who in this story turned out to be an Ethian.
Yikes.
So I'll paraphrase what Lord Dudley said. A beast in the streets and in the sheets.
That is such an insane thing to say. It feels like a slur.
Well, his exact words were a beast in the sack.
Oh my God.
So now Mary's hate for Ethians seems a bit more clear.
Definitely way more personal.
And this allows Jane to pinpoint this hate and also recognize that is Mary's greatest weakness. And comes up with a plan. So in the next scene, we see her with Susanna as Jane seals a letter that she has written to Archer, inviting him to the palace. Susanna, in the meantime, comes across one of Guilford's books about curing Ethianism. And she goes on to explain to Jane the torturous practices at this time of trying to cure, quote unquote, Ethianism. And here we see a parallel drawn to the inhumane practices of conversion therapy. Ultimately, there is no conversion for how you're born, for something that's natural. And Susanna clarifies that everyone should know that there is no cure, and their right to exist as they are should never be questioned.
I love her for that.
A very important message to deliver in this show. Lady Frances knocks on the door. So Jane sneaks Susanna out of a window and goes out into the hall to talk to her. Finally, Lady Frances has been trying to get in touch with Jane all day after she witnessed Guilford's transformation that morning. She pulls her into the room and tells her what she witnessed that morning, and assures Jane that she'll arrange a divorce as soon as she can. She no longer has to be married to him. A divorce, the thing that Jane has wanted since the beginning of this whole debacle. Since episode 1, since 10 minutes into the show, all she wanted was to get out of this marriage and be free. Her mother is now granting her that option, and Jane refuses. What a difference a week makes, huh? At her refusal, Lady Frances tells her, "End this marriage or I will make you end it." She is trying to control her the same way she did at the beginning of the show.
And the irony of that, it's like Jane did, or you forced her rather, to do this thing that you demanded she do. And she's done it. And now, you know, the terms have changed because everybody can be just as conniving as Frances Gray. And now she's like, no, just kidding. I take it back. You're not supposed to be having a good time. But you feel me? Like, it's like, absolutely. Yeah, he's an Ethian. That's dangerous. But also, like, you're just supposed to blindly agree with me and everything that I say. You're not supposed to have your own thoughts and opinions.
Oh, absolutely. To her, Jane is a pawn piece. Yes. She moves around the chessboard to position her family, right?
For sure.
And Jane included in that, but yes, herself as well. Well, Jane reminds her that Lady Frances herself arranged this whole farce to make her queen. Now that she's queen, she can't make her do shit. So, how the turns have tabled. With that, Jane turns to leave as they both, at the same time, realize, maybe Jane has fallen in love with Guilford.
I never would have guessed. That's crazy.
It is nightfall now. So Jane goes out to the stables to find Guilford, who seems to just have recently transformed. As soon as he sees her, he rushes to her side, checks her bruises, caresses her neck where Mary hurt her. It's like he has this desperation after he sees her because he knows that something happened and he wasn't able to do anything.
Yeah.
Wow. He was a horse. I mean, he could have probably trampled Mary, but whatever. She was in the castle. Something that kind of starts right around this time in the series. If you pay attention, they make a point to always show Guilford touching her neck, caressing her neck, kissing her neck. As we know, in real life, Lady Jane Grey loses her head to the executioner's block, and throughout the show is a constant target, making her neck all the more precious during her interactions with Guilford. So they make it a point to show Guilford caring for her and loving on her neck. And I thought that was some pretty cool symbolism.
Yeah, dude, I didn't even clock the neck stuff until you just brought it up. That's such a good eye. I love that you caught that.
I love that they made it a thing. Again, the details, cool writing in the details. Mm-hmm. In this scene, as he checks on her, asks if she's hurt, asks about the council, she shuts him up and asks him, just shut up and kiss me.
Ooh.
And it's steamy. And then she looks up at him and suggests, what if she no longer wanted a divorce?
Okay, girl.
And he's like, well, what if you don't? And then the song Wet Dream very appropriately plays as they desperately undress each other. We get a wonderful scene of consent when Jane stops and says, hey, I don't know what to do. And I really hate not knowing things.
Yeah.
And Guilford says, I can teach you if you want me to. And she goes, I want you to. Again, consent is just fucking sexy, period.
Yeah, consent's
always
great.
Sexy. So they finally bang. Let's go. Only 5 hours into this show, and we finally get to the hanky and the panky. Okay.
Okay. I'm glad no one but me can see Paola's face. Okay.
Finally. They finally release their inhibitions.
And feel the rain on their skin.
Feel the rain on their skin. So, in the afterglow, Jane goes, that was surprisingly vigorous. Okay, first of all, okay, girl. Second of all, what are you comparing this man to? What are you comparing this to, ma'am? Maybe in the book she read, it was a lot more...
in the book she's read, oh my God.
Formulaic. So, again, we get another moment of Guilford caressing her neck yet again and says, Mary could have killed you. And so at this moment, she shares that she has a plan for that bitch.
I'm a fucking get her ass.
And she shares with Guilford that she has invited Archer and the Ethians to the coronation banquet, hoping that it will trigger Mary into attacking her in public, and then she can try Mary for treason. Because she's seen how badly triggered she get when she mentions anything having to do with the Ethians' right to exist. Mm-hmm. And she's banking on her losing her shit.
Mm-hmm. And I would say not a bad idea, not a bad plan.
So she also shares that Lord Dudley wants her to crown him king. I feel like she put this out there to see how he would respond.
Right. To see if it was something that he had talked to his father about.
Exactly. She asks him, is that why you married me? He's like, of course not. All I want is my cure. Oof.
That's rough.
And Jane at this moment decides that she's not going to tell him that it doesn't exist. She's going to...
have a good night for fucking once.
She is going to decide to have a good night.
God.
Oh,
God forbid women have good nights. Like, they can't make me hate you.
Girl, get ravaged again, okay? Tell him tomorrow. So, From this blissful detumescence, we turn to Edward at the convent. What a wild move, okay? To go from like
A sex
Guilford
scene.
and Jane banging and then going to a convent, okay? But all right. Edward, who was woken up by very handsome Ethian man
Let's
that
go.
Jane caught stealing at
Luigi,
the wedding.
is that you?
Oh! Sir, those eyebrows can get you in trouble.
Every time he came on screen, Ryan was like, "Oh my God, Luigi."
Listen, sir, don't threaten me with a heavy brow, sir. Okay?
I was gonna say, don't threaten me
dead.
with the collapse of the U.S. healthcare system.
Oh, God. So, very handsome Ethian man tells Edward that he's in danger. Very similar to how Petunia kind of transformed and told them, hey, you're in danger. And Edward, even after realizing that he's literally locked into the room, not the first time this happens to Edward, by the way, right?
Yo, he's got no luck.
He's locked in a room again.
God.
Even with that realization, he's still skeptical. And he's like, psh, I don't believe you. I have a good sense about this. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you have a terrible sense.
But he poses the legitimate question of, why should I trust you? What if you're an assassin sent here to kill me?
A good point.
Well, Mr. Handsome Ethian man delivers the line, if I wanted to slay you, sweet cheeks, you'd be slain. Okay.
Okay, King.
And
Slay me.
I think that was beautiful, and I'm adding it to my daily vocabulary. Okay? If I wanted to slay you, sweet cheeks, you'd be slain. Edward, however, is still not sold. And as they hear Keys approaching the room, Handsome Ethian man finally gives his name. It's Fitz. And he transforms and leaves. Back at the palace, Petunia and Bess are packing to escape to meet Edward. So Bess knows about Edward. I didn't realize that she knew about Edward until I rewatched it.
I think I realized it once Petunia reveals herself to Bess that she was going to tell her, like, hey, here's what's going on.
So Bess knows about Edward. And before she leaves, Bess wants to warn Jane. In their hurry to get out of there, Petunia's like, girl, just leave her a note. And I think we all immediately knew that that was a terrible idea.
Correct.
This is top secret stuff. Like, this is not the type of shit you, like, put in a group chat, right?
Yeah. It's not the
Right?
kind of thing that you would invite a journalist into your Signal group chat about.
Exactly, right?
Right.
Like, you don't put it on a note, piece of paper that can later be used as evidence, right?
Ooh.
And we hear it and we see it happening and we knew it was going to be a bad idea. But she sneaks to Jane's store and slips a note under it.
Like, there are a couple things in movies. You know what I mean? It's the cough, that person's going to die. It's the, no, it's okay. I'll write it in a note. Notes never delivered. It's, we'll talk about it when I get back. You're
Nope, you
gonna
never talk about it.
die.
Always.
You're gonna die.
We see Bess. She sneaks to Jane's store and slips a note under the door. But Jane didn't wake up in her chambers that morning. She slept with her mans in the stables and wakes up to find that Guilford is still asleep next to her, but now in his horse form. And as she looks at him, she realizes she loves this man
Aww.
in all his forms and wishes that he could see that.
That's so sweet.
That's so sweet, guys.
Gross.
But what I wish that she could have seen was Bess that morning. Who I wish. Because Bess gets caught trying to escape by Seymour, who found the notes that she slipped under Jane's door. That shit didn't last 5 minutes. That literally went from one scene to the next. It's like,
And we already knew it was cooked.
Seymour catches her with her note. On the way out into the carriage, he has his men push her into the carriage and take her to Ketteringham Hall under house arrest. Thankfully, Petunia was in her dog form and stayed behind. Goodness.
Mess.
Back at the convent, Granny checks in on Edward, who hasn't touched his breakfast. and is saying he feels ready to leave. He wants to go back home to the palace.
Mm-hmm.
She tells him, you're not ready to leave. I got some investigating to do. And she explains to Edward that he has Ethian blood, and she wants to try to trigger an Ethian change in him so that he can rule as the first Ethian king. Interesting. And she starts to explain the methods. And what stood out to me is how similar her methods are to what Susanna was describing as the Ethian cure. Granny is describing these torturous methods to trigger an Ethian transformation. The show is reminding us about the extremists on these two sides, right? Trying to cure Ethianism. And then you have the other extreme that's like forcing people to turn into Ethians. Both require human torture. Jesus. Yeah. Speaking of human torture, we cut to Margaret play fighting with her sword and saying, "Die, Ethians, die!"
That's wild.
As she's swinging her swords around. Seymour finds her, and I have to admit, he surprises me yet again when he unexpectedly offers Margaret encouragement and hands her his own real sword. He sees her sword fighting, and instead of what you thought he was going to say, girls shouldn't be doing that. Right. Hey, be careful, kid. He encourages Margaret, hands her his real sword, like, hey, give this a try. Oh, you're strong. You're brave. That's kind of fucking sweet.
And I think, Seymour is like really not that bad.
Every time I'm like, I can like him. Somebody can change his mind. Somebody can.
He could be saved.
Rationalize with him and he can be saved. Okay. Obviously, giving a young child a real sword is slightly unhinged, but he does encourage her and starts to play sword fighting with her. I'm not sure if this meant to be calculated by Seymour, like to gain her trust. But the way that Dominic Cooper plays him at this moment, it really made it seem like a genuine interaction. Like he genuinely came upon this child and was like genuinely like, oh, let me teach you a couple of things. I found it super sweet and therefore very dangerous, because here you have this little girl who feels rejected by her only guardian and is always being pushed aside. And she's receiving this positive attention and reinforcement from this man who we know does not have her family's best interest in mind. And then they seem to like truly bond over this mutual hatred of their own mothers.
My God.
And Seymour even comforts her with, you know what's the best thing about mummies? Sorry.
No. Keep going. No, this is really good. Keep going.
You know what's the best thing about moms? Is that eventually they all die. Ooh.
Well.
And speaking of moms, Lady Frances, in the next scene, storms into Lord Dudley's office to question him about Guildford being a fucking horse, just as Lord Dudley is going through crown designs for Guildford.
He's like so far ahead of himself. Like this man has no strategy.
Stan, who was just about to tell his father something, jumps to his feet and goes, "Darling!" Stan, our man is sprung. He's so sprung.
As I said in episode 1, pussy so good you fall in love.
Oh!
Listen, like Stan never stood a chance.
When we catch back up with Seymour, who goes to see Mary to tell her about his day and to get a little pat on the back, right? He wanted to tell her all about his accomplishments that day.
That's like genuinely kind of... See, I feel for Seymour.
I feel for Seymour.
He just wants his girl to like him, and she just wants
really
to be
does.
fucking queen. Mary don't give a fuck.
She don't. Because he walks into this room, realizes that Norfolk is in her chambers with her. Oh, Norfolk,
Poor guy.
when he sees Seymour walk in, he's like, okay, I'm going to see myself out. I'm going to let you two handle this. Once he leaves, Mary informs Seymour that Norfolk is his replacement. Yo, she has no mercy. But she's like, don't worry, we could still shag.
I genuinely felt really bad at this part.
Seymour refuses and insists that until she respects him professionally, there will be no smacky bottom. And I'm sorry. That shit was so funny. I do think Seymour's character is ridiculously funny.
He's just like a bumbling fool because it's like all he does is shit for Mary. So
Yes.
it's just nothing is his own. And that is funny. I love when men are existing purely in the service of women. I just love that. Sorry.
You know what, Mary? No more smacky bottom for you. And he leaves the room and says he will not be accompanying her to the coronation banquet.
Ooh.
He is standing his ground. So the evening arrives. It is finally time for the coronation banquet. We see Jane getting dressed by her ladies' maids, and she looks absolutely regal and stunning. You know, I mentioned this in the beginning. You know that I love Elizabeth the Golden Age. And in this golden dress that she wears for the coronation banquet, she definitely gives me that Elizabeth the Golden Age vibe, like with the large ruff on her collar, like the crown, she looks spectacular. And I want to mention the ruff that she is wearing is the actual ruff that Gwyneth Paltrow wears in Shakespeare in Love.
Oh, that's cool.
Isn't that such a cool detail? It's such a cool homage to another cult classic period film. As she's getting dressed, Guilford finds Jane, comes into Jane's chambers, and brings her a gift. A set of earrings that used to belong to his mother. Oh. And she tries to protest, and before she can, he gives her a good wet one, baby. Neck caress and all. As he puts them on her, he tells her that before they met, he was in despair, and now she has given him hope. And just as she's about to confess something and he's about to say some more, something along the lines of 3 little words, he gets interrupted by Lord Dudley that tells them it is time to go into their coronation banquet. So as they make their entrance into this banquet, the 80s song 20th Century Boy by Girls School plays. And they enter into this fabulously decorated hall. And I feel like here in this moment at this coronation banquet is where you see the work of Will Hughes Jones really freaking shine. As we've mentioned, you have seen his work in Bridgerton, and here you can see the extravagance of this ball while it still feels very contemporaneous with the time. And I would love to point out, you even see the gold gilded servants. Do you know where else we saw gold gilded servants? Anthony and Edwina's doomed wedding in Bridgerton season 2. They were outside serving people
and they had the living statues that were painted in gold.
Yes, so those gold gilded servants or statues make another appearance in this coronation banquet for Queen Jane. Here, Jane and Guilford enter the banquet showered in rose petals, and they are guided through the party, encouraged to mingle by Lord Dudley. Lord Dudley introduces them to Lord Norfolk, Lord Scrope. Norfolk brings up that there's riots in Cheapside. And Mary herself interjects into this conversation and blames the rioting on Jane. Jane ignores it, greets her politely. When Mary turns to leave, Charles comes up to Jane and lets her know that her special guests have arrived. So Jane prepares to make a speech, and in her speech encourages all the lords and ladies in that room that night to reject the division and hatred of the past generations, and promises that she is going to take away division laws. And then she invites all her Ethian friends in, led by Archer, to everyone's astonishment. And Jane readies her trap and calls on Mary to make a toast. And just as you would expect, Mary begins by calling them abomination, calls Jane a mistake, and then almost threatens Jane's life again, but catches herself and instead screams like a fucking maniac, embarrassing herself and everyone present. The narrator chimes in with, "There is no horror to the English quite as acutely mortifying as making a nasty scene in public." You know, it's kind of the thing you see abroad.
Okay. Are you wrong? No. But that's enough.
That tickled me. I thought it was hilarious. The narrator calls it social arson and political suicide. And Mary literally runs out of the room and the party literally stays calm and carries on as everyone continues to mingle. It seemed like nobody else cared. They asked the Ethians question, they're sharing drinks. Overall, everyone's kind of fine and chill. Guilford, on his own, approaches two Ethians and asks if they know of the Ethian cure. And as you would imagine, anybody being told that they need to be cured of something that they are born with, they look at him like he's crazy. They're like, why the fuck would I want a cure? This magic that I possess, I was born with, it's fucking amazing. Why would I want a cure? We see that Jane notices this interaction. Who else is watching this interaction? Lady Frances. After this conversation, Jane goes to Guilford, takes him by the hand, and leads him outside. And finally, confesses that there is no cure for Ethianism. And she begs him to try to accept himself as he is, and tries to assure him that she can end the division and help heal England. Oof. And we get this heartbreaking outburst from Guilford, and he cuts her off and says, "Fuck England, heal me." Oh. And he storms off.
Yeah, oof. That was sad.
Oof. And Jane that night returns to her room hoping to find Guilford, but instead meets Petunia, who shows up and tells Jane she can help gather the evidence that she needs to catch Mary and Seymour. So the next morning, we see Seymour in his office when Margaret bursts in, sword fighting and screaming, "Die, die, die, Ethians."
Damn.
He greets her with his new pet name for her, Poppet.
Aw, that's cute.
It's so cute. And she comes in and she complains about her mother sending her away. And she complains about Jane not having enough time for her that morning. And Seymour's like, she didn't have enough time. Why is she so busy? And Margaret sings like a little canary and tells him Jane's gone to talk to the herbalist in the market who sold him the Tofana.
Ooh.
Oh, shit. We cut to Jane, who has gathered guards and witnesses to arrest Mary and Seymour in their chambers. They arrive, open the door, and when they go in, they're both gone. God damn it, Margaret. See, if anyone had paid attention to that child earlier that day.
Oh, yeah, if anyone was nice to her at all. That's kind of what happens with kids.
No! Ugh.
They'll find the attention or the love somewhere.
And that's how episode 5 ends. God damn it.
Yikes. What are we going to do? How are we going to resolve this? We don't know. That's why we're going to keep talking about it. We are getting into episode 6, titled, I Feel Free. Okay. The episode description is as follows. Jane needs allies. These cannot be ordered on Amazon Prime with one-day delivery.
That's hilarious.
That's so good. If anyone knows where Guilford is, please let us know. Very, very good. A+ on the episode descriptions. We open this episode with a cover of Stayin' Alive. Hell yes.
That's messy.
But I love it. Like if we're gonna do this with the music, we're gonna fucking do it with the music. I love it. We get our Love Island ass narrator telling us the significance of dopamine in the brain. And you know what? We love science in this house. Quote, nothing triggers euphoria like having your regicidal nemesis on the run. God damn, what a rush. Unquote.
Goodness me.
That was some of my favorite narration work. Jane is in the throne room surrounded by the court, members of the Privy Council, asking that they fight with her to capture Mary and punish her for treason. And the narrator informs us that Tudor monarchs actually don't have armies.
And she disbanded the Kingsland Guards.
And she did disband the Kingsland Guards. That's crazy. And Jane is beholden to the noblemen to offer up their forces. Yo, being a monarch sounds like a mess. Y'all are tripping, wanting all that power. Jane refuses to take back her promise to end division laws, which could have been a bargaining chip to get more of the noblemen to agree to help her. And this sends gasps and shockwaves through the crowd. We see from the back of this throne room where the entry is, a common woman, she's wearing a very plain dress, enters the room and shouts, "Long live Queen Mary," as she aims an arrow at Jane's neck. And we get the title card, My Queen Jane. Archer, the Ethian leader, who is situated at Jane's right side, so the viewer's left side, knocks Jane out of the way. And the perfectly aimed arrow, like this woman could be a sniper. Like they found the best arrow shooter anywhere in the world, made her loyal to Mary. The perfectly aimed arrow just grazes the side of her neck. The would-be assassin is killed by guards immediately. Dudley tells Jane, quote, "Stand up, keep smiling, you are alive," end quote. And it's just really giving Teeth and Eyes from the wedding episode. Obsessed. Wow, Lord Dudley, you really believe the show must go on.
It's giving Effie Trinket from the Hunger Games. Smile.
Oh, love it. Thank you for that. Fantastic.
Smile. You're on camera.
Oh my God. That table is mahogany. We cut to Edward at the nunnery with Gran, where she's trying to force his Ethian change by beating him up, giving him fucked up weird soup, weird medicine, etc. He angrily tells her to stop, that he isn't an Ethian, but he is the rightful king. Gran, stop it.
I'm tired of this, Grandma.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa. Well, that's too dang bad. Literally. Oh, God. And she seems encouraged by his anger. She says that she's got plans for him as England's first Ethian king. Ooh, pray tell, Granny, what is that agenda? She starts telling him of dark prophecies foretold by the strange behavior of animals. But Edward is distracted, as is our narrator, because he catches sight of the hot Ethian, who is also a cat, who sends him a little wave as he's like cleaning the floors. And you're like, okay, girl.
With like his hair over his face.
Okay. If you wanted to flirt with me, just say that. It's fine. I'm watching this with my husband. It's okay. He gets it. It's fine. Edward is smitten.
Are you saying that Edward is smitten for the kitten?
I don't like that at all. I don't like that. I don't understand your question and I won't respond to it. That's from Arrested Development. So
Dead.
When Edward tunes back into the lecture from his grandmother, she has concluded with, "And we will slaughter all verities." And he says, "Slaughter all verities?" And his grandmother smiles at him. And this bitch got big ass teeth. And in the book, Gran is actually a skunk. She's not a tortoise. And they make jokes constantly about how she like always smells bad because she's a skunk. And like the skunkiness never really quite leaves her.
And whenever she gets upset, it gets more skunky.
Yes. She gets the smell just increases.
Like
in
even
potency.
in her human form, she just gets stinkier.
That's so funny. So back at the castle, our favorite medical professional, Dr. Butts, is treating Jane's superficial neck wound with animal dung. Literally the infections, I can't be alive right now, right? Like, because my girl's gonna die of a blood disease. She's gonna get septic. Like, I cannot have this. As she protests, he says, quote, "Women, do they ever stop? The endless chitter-chatter, chitter-chatter." Because he's a bitch. And Jane fires his dumbass. Bueno que le pase.
Oh, yeah.
She angrily exits the room after wiping the dung off her neck. You can only hope that that wound was beginning to close, okay? Her mother is at her heels, and as they walk out, they're joined by Lord Dudley. Jane is informed that half of the lords have left the castle and are heading back to their estates because Jane insists on ending division law and helping Ethians. Lord Dudley lets her know. No nobles, no soldiers. No soldiers, no crown. No crown, no bueno. No bueno, dude.
No.
Cut. Back to the throne room.
Oh, no.
Back to the throne room where the remaining lords are still gathered. And Archer confirms to the Duke of Norfolk that he's a bear in his Ethian form. His animal form. Jane enters and tells the lords that she intends to hold a tournament with games for the rest of the week, basically holding them hostage until they agree to help her. Or else, right? Norfolk tries to weasel out of it, but she insists that he stays. Lord Scrope, terrible name, is pumped to be there for the games. And Archer looks on with calculating eyes.
Yeah, Lord Scope is like fascinated. He's like, "Oh, you're a bear, huh?
Lord Scrope,
That's
we can't decide.
That's fun and interesting."
Yeah, we can't decide how we feel about Lord Scrope.
Lord Scrope is a little spicy.
Yeah, he's seasoned. Archer approaches Jane as the room clears, tells her that she's done something clever by keeping the lords there throughout the week, but he's doubtful that any of them will agree to help her and change their stance on Ethians. She says they'll trick him into helping her anyway because she a bold-ass bitch. And I love that for her. We love Jane. Jane exits, saying it's almost nightfall, and approaches the stables with a lantern looking for Guilford. She runs into his groom, who tells her Guilford's gone to find a cure for his Ethianism. That Guilford said he was sorry and didn't think Jane would understand. Jane sobs quietly as she turns around and leaves the stables to walk back to the palace. Jane barges in to Lord Dudley's office, where he's having like a weird small meeting, probably about the planning for like this tournament that she suddenly decided to have. And he says that he's secured an elephant, for the tournament. Jane interrupts him and tells him that Guilford has left her. And Lord Dudley says that she'll be grateful once he's cured.
Oh, God.
And Jane tells him, this is your fault. You sent him away and made him feel defective. What kind of father does that? And you know what, babe? Most of them do that. Ask anyone with a father. I feel like this offers some parallels between the relationship Lady Grey has with her daughters and the relationship of the Dudley men. Because it's all about protection and preserving their futures, but there's no attention paid to the harm, the active harm that they do to their children and how they talk to them in the things that they allow or don't allow them to do. And it's an indictment of that type of parenting. And also, like, this is a global experience where your parents are like, I did what I had to do. I gave you food and you had a place to sleep and you went to school and then I was done. And then the parenting part was over and I didn't have to be nice to you and I didn't have to care about anything that you cared about. I did the mandatory stuff.
I did what I needed to do so that you can do what you're doing today. And that's all that I can give at that time.
And that's all that I can give. And if you're upset about that, that doesn't sound like it's my problem.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're a little baby.
Oh, and that's why we have therapy.
And we get pieces of that through all of these interactions. Lady Grey and the other Grey women, the Dudleys. Like, I think it's very interesting that the show chooses to make this critique of parenting, right? Because they could easily like ignore this kind of stuff and focus on other aspects of the story, but they specifically have moments where they call out, you were a shitty parent. Or like, you did this terribly. I resent you. I'm angry with you. And like, I don't know. There's something about that that's like really validating.
I mean, and the narrator even said earlier on in the series, if therapy existed at this time, Guilford would be a different person and this would be a different story.
Ooh. Lord Dudley says that he tried his best to hide him in the forest and protect him as much as he could. Quote, what would you have me do? Abandon my life at court? Unquote.
Ooh!
And Jane doesn't even answer that. She just gives him a withering look.
Is he withered?
He is withered.
He is withered.
Girl. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Lord Dudley says that once Guilford is cured, Jane might agree to naming him king. She scoffs and leaves his office. We see Guilford walking through the really dark forest with the red-headed Ethian. His name is Owen, and he is played by Will Merrick, who I know from Skins UK. He's in like the second or third season of Skins, and I'm like, oh my god, it's you! That's so crazy! You get the impression that Owen's been talking for a long time.
He does not shut up.
He talks about how he's a cat in his animal form and his wife is a mouse in her animal form, and that makes their relationship very tense, which is honestly really, really funny. Guilford said that if he had the choice, he'd never change. And Owen says that he's a horse, and being a horse isn't too shabby. And doesn't turning into an animal feel so freeing? That moment where you change, where you realize that you're different, where your senses heighten. And Guilford ignores him, doesn't address this at all, and asks how much further they have to go. We cut back to the nunnery, where we see Edward filing down a sharp utensil against some rough stones and using it as a lockpick to open his door. Out in the hall, he encounters the hot Ethian, because of course he does, and they scuffle for like control of this. It ends up being a sharpened butter knife. We learn throughout this scuffle, as they're kind of like alternating pinning each other to the wall, hot Ethian is an actor, a thief, and a, quote, splendid pickpocket, unquote, and has a Cockney accent, which I thought was a funny choice. He says Edward's a mark because he's the king, and Edward agrees to pay him for his help in escaping the nunnery. This episode moves at the speed of light, y'all. We are operating at a clip and not Guilford's clip just because he's a horse. Cut to the banquet hall at the palace. We see the Grey women sitting at the table. Catherine gives Margaret a small note to give to fake-ass Justin Long, who is the man that she's interested in.
Dead. And not fake Justin Long. No.
But am I right? I am. That's why you're mad. Justin Long is the ward of the Duke of Norfolk. And Margaret takes the note over to him, asking if he'd rather have no teeth or no fingers. He says no fingers because he really likes eating. And I was going to say, girl, you can get dentures if you don't have teeth. You can't get new fingers. What? Anyway.
But Margaret accepts his answer.
Yeah, but Margaret's like, nice, great answer. And I'm like, wrong. I would say no teeth. Also because I need my hands to do stuff. You could always get dentures. I don't know. I thought that was whatever. I also love to eat. But you know what? Most food can be soft. She gives him the note. We see Lady Frances beginning to flirt with Lord Scrope. Who, again, I was also kind of confused by this part, after seeming to pop a boner, regales the ladies, the Grey ladies, with a poem as Stan looks on in jealousy. Stan hands Margaret a note meant for Lady Frances. While Margaret's like, fucking seriously, is everybody just going to make me pass notes all night? She hands it to Lady Frances, who then, while making eye contact with Stan, holds the note over the flame of the candle in front of her. Yikes. We see fake-ass Justin Long read the note from Catherine and then approach her at her table before seeming to lose his nerve and walk away. Bummer. Back at the nunnery, we see the hot Ethian and King Edward moving through the halls. Hot Ethian says he's going to get the key to try and get them out because they are locked in at pretty much every level. He tells Edward to stay still, so of course Edward goes looking around when he should have stayed still. They seem to be in the kitchen. The scene feels incredibly Get Out, like Jordan Peele's Get Out. A nun has captured the hot Ethian in his cat form and has trapped him inside a burlap sack. Edward starts fucking fighting this woman, okay? Like somebody's about to jump out and go, "World Star!" Like they are fighting. And she comes at him with a fucking mace. Like a ball covered in spikes, motherfucker. A mace. That shit's crazy. He fights back at her with a fire poker using some of his like fencing technique or whatever. Turns out he can actually fight a little bit, which is crazy. The hot Ethian turns back into a human just in time to save Edward from the Liam Neeson ass nun. Edward grabs the keys. Dog, tell me I'm wrong. I'm not.
Like, how does this nun have a particular set of skills?
That's why she's a nun, baby. She's out there to guard the nunnery with her fucking skills, lest anyone be taken. So Edward grabs the keys off her belt and they go for the exit. We cut to Jane. Boom, boom, boom. We are back and forth, baby. There's a lot happening. At the palace, as the narrator describes, quote, broken heart syndrome, unquote, to us, and how it has affected Jane. Jane wants to proceed with her tournament, but the weather is like comically bad. Like it starts thundering, raining. It is like driving down rain.
It's like the worst luck.
Oh, for sure. Ooh, bad luck. Lord Dudley says, "Rain in England. I can't believe it." Which just like sent me to the moon. I loved that. She insists on proceeding with indoor games. Okay. Like bowling. Okay. which we see everyone like play and they like seem to somewhat kind of start to enjoy themselves. It's giving, I'm in elementary school, field day was supposed to be outside, it's raining, so now they set up the
Now
gym.
we're in the gym
with those little scooting like little butt scooters that they used to put you on.
You know, I mean, you're meant to see Jane's resourcefulness here. I mean, anytime you see a film in this period, there's always a grand event at a tournament.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I guess maybe in the storytelling, the tournament is supposed to feel anticlimactic because, as we will learn, it's not terribly successful. Like, so maybe it's just supposed to be kind of like, yeah, it was kind of like a fail from the beginning. Like, it wasn't really going to work out.
Like, the odds were against Jane.
Yes. And no matter how much she tried to drive it forward, it wasn't going to, like, it just wasn't going to be perfect. We see Norfolk and Archer decide to make a bet upon a game of bowls, or as we call it, bowling. And if Archer wins, division laws end. Yikes! He tells Jane to trust him. Ooh, that's so crazy, y'all. Why would you do that? We see fake-ass Justin Long and Catherine see each other in the hall outside where the games are taking place. And they kind of like quickly start like flirting. It's very cute. And then they immediately start canoodling.
Ooh, get it, girl.
Catherine pulls him into like a far off staircase to continue canoodling. And Lady Frances comes and finds her and dismisses fake ass Justin Long, says, hey, scram. And he leaves. Lady Frances tells Catherine, quote, if you want to have a casual affair, go right ahead. I've had plenty of my own, end quote. Hey, baby, we're sex positive in this house. We don't slut shame as ladies gray, okay? But she continues, it cannot be with the son of the man who wants to kill us all. We learn fake-ass Justin Long is William Seymour, the son and heir of Lord Seymour. Because the sons of noblemen, as we are told by Lady Frances, are often wards of other noblemen, quote, which you would know if your father had been alive or if you had a brother or if I ever found myself interested in keeping up with the lives of men, end quote. I'm sorry. They cannot make me hate you, Lady Frances.
Yeah, you can't. I can't hate Lady Frances.
I cannot hate you.
I can disagree with you, Lady Frances. I cannot hate you.
Lady Frances should run for office. They'll never make me hate you. She would make a splendid CEO because they're all psychopaths anyway. Lady Frances forbids Catherine from seeing him again. Back in the bowling room, we continue the bowling match between Archer and Norfolk. Here is where we learn that Archer is a nobleman, which we previously did not know, right? He's just like the lawless leader of this band of Ethians called the Pack. Archer's a nobleman. He is the son of a baron. And because he's the son of a baron, he's incredibly good at the game of bowls. Apparently, during King Henry's reign, he outlawed game of bowls for anyone who was not a nobleman. King Henry, this sounds cool. Bring him back to life. Let's see what he's like these days.
No, they have Mary.
Blech. All the other noblemen are shocked by this. Norfolk, upon seeing how good Archer is at bowls, because we get like a fun gameplay montage where everyone's like, ooh, and everyone's having a good time, like throwing all the balls or whatever. At the end of this funny feel-good montage, it seems like Archer might win. At the very least, they're tied. Norfolk calls some type of fucking play in the game that narrows the rest of the game down to one more shot from each player, winner takes all. Crazy.
Because he was losing.
Because they were either going to tie or he was losing. And we love it when white men rig the game, don't we, ladies?
Oh, God.
Archer wins because, of course, he does. That's the show we're watching. And Norfolk is pissed about it. So what does that mean? It means that the division laws, they're struck down, baby. Ain't no division, no more. Also, it's been one day. Like, I thought the tournament was supposed to be a week. It's been one day. Jane informs the nobleman that she expects them to meet with her regarding their armies the following morning. Ooh, girl, that's a little presumptuous. Norfolk, out of frustration, takes his bowling ball and, like, blindly throws it behind him, slamming into Stan Dudley's nose. Not Stan. Not stupid little baby Stan. Cut to Jane, the queen. Like, there are many things I think about the hierarchy that like confuse me based on other monarchy media that I've consumed, like other TV shows or other movies. Jane, the queen, is cleaning up Stan's messed up nose.
Well, she fired the doctor.
Dr. Butts.
She fired Dr. Butts. So she's like, I got this one.
Yeah. She is alone with him in a room, cleaning his messed up nose. And Stan is like, where's Dr. Butts? And Jane's like, I fired him. And he goes, we love that guy.
No.
Sorry, dog.
No.
They talk briefly as Jane is cleaning up his nose. He's like all covered in blood. Yikes, his nose is like swollen. They talk briefly about Guilford and how his heart is in the right place, but Dudley men can be stupid sometimes. And I'm like, Stan, did you think you were cooking with that? Because I think you just described all men, or most men. Like, oh, he wants to do a good job, but he's stupid. It's like, yeah, that sounds like being a man. What? Stan says that Guilford is on a journey to forgive himself. And Jane asks, for what? What does he need to forgive himself for? Loose lips Stan over here tells Jane that when Guilford comes back from his Ethian Cure tour, she can ask him herself. That's their business. It's not his story to tell. Lord Scrope comes into the chambers and Jane dismisses Stan. Lord Scrope kneels in front of Jane as soon as they're alone, as Jane says, oh, fuck me. Which that I did cackle. That's very funny. He's proposing. Oh no. And Jane says, hey dog, super flattering, but I am already married. And Lord Scrope says that her husband is never coming back. And Jane's like, the fuck you mean, dog? And he goes, Lady Frances told me so.
Oh, another loose lips.
And you can't be out here without a king, my girl. Let's get married. And Jane is like, I beg your finest pardon. We cut to Guilford in the forest with the red-headed Ethian. He's still chatting, having trivial discussion. As suddenly, Guilford, who is not on his guard, who has not been keeping an eye on his six or whatever it is people say, he is knocked the fuck out by the red-headed Ethian. This guy has just taken some kind of fucking dull instrument to the back of Guilford's head. My man is on the ground. This is obviously a fucking trap, which any of us called as soon as we were watching. Cut from there, boom, 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 we were going back and forth, to Lady Frances looking into a mirror as Jane enters her room behind her, shouting, how dare you, without missing a single beat. Lady Frances answers, I say, are you drunk? They can never make me hate you. Never. You're an icon, a legend, a national treasure. Jane asks why Lady Frances told Lord Scrope to propose, why he thought it was okay. Lady Frances says he's got one of the largest armies in the kingdom, and he's loyal, even though he's stupid and annoying. And she tells Jane she's wasting her time on the Ethian crusade, and even on Guilford, hopelessly searching for a cure to his Ethianism. This gives Jane pause, because now she's like, you had no way of knowing that. Who told you that he went looking for a cure? Lady Frances realizes her mistake.
Stan's been rubbing off on Lady Frances here.
Well, in more ways than one. So she basically tells Jane, bitch, get over it. He's never coming back because I made it so. Because we have set a fucking trap. The camera pulls out from their room and we see a shocked Stan Dudley at the open doorway eavesdropping. And he looks devastated.
He really does look like Ryan.
Ah! Oh, God.
Oh.
Back at the forest, Guilford wakes up chained by the neck to a tree. It's like this thick, immovable cuff around his neck, and the cuff is attached to a chain. The chain is looped around a tree. Red-headed Ethian tells Guilford that he will be taken by the beast trader. Goodness. What is
and
that,
he looks around,
pray tell?
And there's a bunch of animals also chained up to trees in a similar fashion. So you can assume they were caught human, chained up, and then turned and died as in their Ethian form.
And none of those other animals, whether they are alive or dead, are as big as a fucking horse. So now, clock is running out. Guilford tries to bargain with him to have his neck unchained because if the sun rises and he changes, it'll break his horse neck and he'll die. Red-headed Ethian does not give a singular fuck. He's out here for the bills.
He's a sellout.
Yeah, you're selling out your own kind.
He's selling out his own kind.
Yeah. there are too many examples in history that I could give you, right? Like,
there truly are.
it's the people who are calling immigration police on their neighbors. It's the people turning in and reporting other people that they know. Why does one of your own betray you? Because they don't view your community as a community. When everyone is viewing themselves as an individual, when everyone's out for themselves, there's no social contract, there's no solidarity, and that's what he's giving us, this particular Ethian. Meanwhile, most of the other Ethians that we've come across throughout the show are very community oriented. They all stick together. They travel together. They're literally the pack. Yeah. Lady Frances just managed to find one that doesn't fucking care.
Right. That she could buy. She found one that she could buy.
So Guilford manages to trick him into like sharing a canteen of water, tries to knock him out with a headbutt, gets him down on the ground, grabbing the key to the chain, but not the key to the cuff around his neck. They are two different keys. The red-headed Ethian takes the key to the cuff and flings it over his head behind him into the forest floor. Like, I'm shaking. Grass. I'm freaking out. I'm so upset. There's no iPhone flashlight. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no hope that you're finding that fucking key. As Guilford starts to panic, because he's like, the sky's starting to get lighter. The sun's gonna come up. This shit is stuck on my fucking neck. I'm gonna die. The redheaded Ethian's like, yeah, I don't know, dog. I don't know what to tell you. Sucks to suck. The shit is feeling dire, okay? Like, obviously, at this point, I'm writing my notes. I've watched the show 2 or 3 times, right? But the first time, I'm like, yo, what's up?
It feels real dark, yeah.
Guilford runs away, right? He's not chained to the tree anymore. He's only got the cuff around his neck. He runs and runs and runs. In which direction? I don't know. He comes across a worker chopping logs in the middle of the forest and very quickly confesses that he's Ethian and he's going to change. And if the cuff doesn't come off before sunrise, he'll die.
And he says this not knowing if this guy is going to help him because he's Ethian or literally hurt him or let him die because he's Ethian. He doesn't know where this guy stands.
He just has to take the risk.
He just has to take the risk. Yeah.
The worker, the guy, is like giving us nothing. We have no idea where he stands. And he's just like, put your head down on the block. And you're thinking, like, is he going to try to fucking cut Guilford's head off? What the hell? No. What he does is knocks off the closed lock that is sitting on the fucking neck cuff that Guilford is wearing. Mm-hmm. Guilford is able to shake the cuff off as he gets up and thanks him and almost immediately turns into a horse.
1 second.
It'll
been curtains.
And the narrator tells us that he is desperate to get back to the palace and get back to Jane, which is sweet.
And he does this so well with his face because you can see like this relief in him. And also almost like he's never been so grateful to be able to turn into a horse.
Because now
he's never been so grateful, yes, to have this skill, this magic that he has, because it's what's going to get him back to where he needs to be to protect Jane. Mm-hmm. And then it's a beautiful shot.
Oh, the horse running on the horizon.
As the sun rises. Mm-hmm.
It is very beautiful. Yeah. I love horses. I'm not like a horse girl. I mean, like, I love them from a distance, you know? Like, I grew up in a city. Yeah. So anyway.
I don't know how to be around them, but they're nice.
I don't know how they, like, work, but I think they're majestic creatures. So we cut back to the palace. The noblemen have fled, taking the promises of their armies with them. Oof. We hear that Mary has been seen with 10,000 soldiers on the London road, heading towards the palace to take the crown away from Jane. Jane goes to Archer and asks if he can send Ethians to help her now that she has no armies, no noblemen, no Kingsland Guard. And he says he won't be sending his Ethians, his pack, to just be slaughtered by 10,000 fucking soldiers. And also, like, this is apropos of nothing. This is like a total side note. These two have great chemistry.
Yo,
like,
let me tell you.
There was a minute where I was like,
where he like jumps.
Die? Is she gonna be with Archer?
The scene where he pushes her out of the way and then like falls on top of her on the ground, and like she looks up at him and he looks down on her and they smile at each other. I'm like, bitch, y'all better stop. Where's Guilford?
Someone, can we get a horse in here ASAP? Jog your memory.
Baby, I'll trade you a horse for a bear. How about that?
That's-
I don't know. I don't know what that does, but man or bear?
You're like, but oh my God, stop it. Yeah, they have really good chemistry. Like, what an interesting twist this could have been if Jane. If Jane,
stop it right now.
No.
Curse your mouth.
I'm saying if Jane became queen before marrying Guilford, right? If they hadn't sorted it out,
and then marries an Ethian,
and then meets Archer, and she's like, ooh, and Archer's like and he's a fucking nobleman, so like it's not like she can't marry him. I just thought that would have been interesting. That's a fanfic that I'm not gonna write, but I'll look for it.
There we go. The fanfic.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh no, because Guilford escapes. He doesn't want to go back because he's ridden with guilt. And so Jane is by herself now. And so her and Archer start. And so a couple years go by and Guilford shows up at the wedding. No, so it's not a couple years, like weeks. I mean, also she did everything for the Ethians to end division laws, and then now he kind of did just.
Oh no, he does her super dirty.
Say fuck off.
Yeah,
he does her super dirty.
But the thing is, he also never really committed to protecting her. Like, he never really committed to the Ethians taking care of her.
And also, I don't think she did it for the Ethians to take care of her.
Right.
She did it purely because she believes that
they should be equal. Yes. After that scene, we see Stan having an argument with Lady Grey in the hall. He seems to be kind of like moving his shit out. Like, it almost seems like he's holding one of those like banker's boxes that people pack their desks into when they get fired. He's like moving down the hall. She calls his name. He ignores her. And she's like, hello? Like, gross. What are you doing? This is weird. And he tells her he's ignoring her because he overheard what she did to Guilford. Trapped him. Put him in a trap. She says that it is all Stan's fault for putting his cock above his brother. And then Stan goes, ew. And Lady Frances goes, you know what I mean. And that Stan was the one with loose lips sinking that ship because he told her all the information about Guilford. Stan, holding this random box of stuff, runs away. We see Jane seated at the throne, signing a proclamation to officially abolish division laws. Lady Frances runs into the throne room and tells Jane she has to run now or she will be killed. Jane is kind of like paralyzed, deer in headlights. After Lady Frances enters the throne room, we see the Duke of Norfolk come into the throne room, and for a second, Jane is like, oh, Norfolk's here. We'll be fine. Everything's going to be okay. He's going to pledge loyalty to me. No, babe, because he's immediately followed by Lord Seymour, who, gesturing behind him, says, take her. Take them all. The music kicks up. We start to panic. Jane starts to panic and runs for her fucking life. Books it. Lady Frances is snatched by armored guards. Jane runs away from the palace, and as she's trying to cross the bridge out of the palace, she is stopped by Mary, who is also in armor, seated atop a horse, followed by thousands of mounted armed guards and soldiers.
God damn it.
As the narrator tells us, Jane is thoroughly fucked. And that's episode 6, baby.
Ooh.
Yikes.
God damn.
I know.
This was one of those moments where I'm watching and I'm like, fuck, she should have listened to her mom.
Oh, like Lord Scrope, you mean?
I don't know. Multiple opportunities to have listened to her mom and like at least prolong the situation. Mm-hmm. Whether it was accept an engagement from Lord Scrope and at least you have that army with you, or just leave when she said.
She still would have encountered Mary. By the time people even came into the throne room to tell her anything, she was already cooked. Like, the shit was already blocked off.
It was, yeah. They were outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you get the lords on your side? How do you get the lords on your side and convince them that this is a good idea?
You don't.
I think maybe just needed more time.
Maybe like a full week.
Like maybe trying to do it off the bat at the same time. New queen, new coronation, and hey, new laws. Like maybe it was just too much too soon.
That's the kind of shit you gotta romance out of the lords. Like it's gotta be months and months of schmoozing and wooing and I'm the better queen and Mary will do this and all of that jazz.
But taking that approach also means that you're knowingly letting people be in danger for a prolonged period of time,
Right.
because you're trying to kiss up to the lords and trying to be diplomatic, trying to placate everyone, kind of. That type of diplomacy does take a long time to try to get people to be on your side, to say, hey, you know, these people that you've been made to hate your entire life, hey, they're actually not that bad and they deserve to
have lives.
If she doesn't do it right away, would there have been understanding on the Ethian side where it's like, oh, these things take time? I don't know. Because they were also weighing options from Mary, Queen of Scots.
Yeah.
They probably weren't going to be patient enough for Jane to be able to woo some lords and however long that would take her. So I think that episode kind of does a good job of showing you this is why diplomacy is important. And this is how it can backfire real bad.
And the thing with diplomacy, it's literally just people having the ability to like talk to other people in a manner that's respectful without being a complete dick about it, and try to still get some of the things that they want, some of the things that the other party wants. And when you have a bunch of like people in government that just need to dick swing and tell everyone that they're so powerful and cool and great and smart, you're not gonna reach diplomatic conclusions. And when you don't reach diplomatic conclusions, you go to war. We look back on history and we give people so much credit. I think we give them so much credit for being smart or calculating, or they did this and they did that, when a lot of it is just you made some fucking blunders. You got some shit done by accident, or you had so much hubris and pride that you couldn't do this other thing. You were too prideful, blah, blah, blah. Like, figures in history are very flawed. It reminds me of like Greek mythology, how like Greek gods are generally all terrible. Like, they're all terrible and vengeful and wrathful in like different ways, and they take that out on normal people in different ways. And that's how I feel about monarchy. You guys did all this shit out of like weird fucking personal reasons. You're all just doofuses like us. We're all the fucking same. So yeah, I feel like this is almost an illustration of that. Like, oh, if you flatter this guy, he'll help you because his ego needs stroking. Like, what? Be so for real.
I think this episode also does show that, for example, in the comparison of Jane and Mary, it's easier to prey upon a person's existing biases and weaponize those existing biases and fuel them and create this hate and rally people behind that hate than it is to convince people that these are just normal people like us and get them to change their minds.
The best way to unite people is giving them a common enemy.
And that's literally what you see in the difference between Jane and Mary in this episode. Something else that this episode does, and I think something that we see throughout the series, but especially in this episode, is that Jane, as our hero, is still a flawed hero.
Yes.
And that's okay as well. She's not going to be perfect because she's our hero. There are mistakes that she made. There are miscalculations that she makes. And it makes it a lot easier to be able to see yourself as somebody who can make that same type of change. Or who can push for that same type of change. Even if it doesn't work out, you're sending a message. And I think that that's what Jane also shows in this episode. And that's very important to see in her character.
Yeah, so that was episodes 5 and 6 of season 1 of My Lady Jane. So crazy. It is ramping up. Like, shit is going down.
We only have 2 more episodes to cover.
That's crazy, dog.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we've only got 2 episodes left. Ooh. So we're going to see what happens.
We're going to keep talking about this. Also, we're going to keep contextualizing it to our time because that's what art is for. And that's why we're here.
That's what art is for. And we love that. Love that for us. Love that for it. So thank you so much for listening. If you've made it this far in the episode, as always, if you like what you heard and you want to hear more, please leave a review. Please. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, a rating, a review, that stuff helps other people find us. It also kind of like really makes our day. It feels nice.
You guys are awesome. I'm gonna share some reviews on our Insta soon.
Yeah, you guys are great. And honestly, even if you don't like the show and you leave a review, we take constructive criticism. Hello.
Hell yeah.
We're daughters of Latin American parents. We'll take constructive criticism.
We grew up on constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Send it our way. Let us know.
Unless
what would you like to
it's-
hear? What would you like to not hear?
Unless it's don't curse so much, and I'm gonna be like, sorry, dog.
Then we can't.
Factory settings right here. I'm not gonna change that.
Incapable.
But leave a review anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find us on Instagram at Sisflix Podcast. You can find us on YouTube at Sisflix Podcast. You can find us on Letterboxd at Sisflix Podcast. You can find us on Patreon. Guys, there's so many fucking places you can find us. You can find us on Patreon. If you would like to support our podcast, we have multiple tiers available for support. You get a cute little packs of stickers a couple times a year that we make for you guys. You get a little bit of bonus content, Sisflix Hit Clips, which is the episodes where we really just like bullshit and talk to each other. We are starting shortly a book club. You will also get access to the episodes in the book club. So if that tickles your fancy, guys, look us up on Patreon, see if that's interesting to you. If not, and you're just listening regular, we really appreciate you. Please join us for the next and final installment of our My Lady Jane rewatch and recap series.
Yes, and then don't forget to hang again with us to listen to our conversation with Deb and Jules about the Save My Lady Jane campaign. So join us after that as well.
Hell yeah.
Bye.
Bye.